Have you ever, like, thought about joy as something you could actually, like,
Build.
build,
Yeah.
like, into the actual fabric of your life, you know?
Hmm. Interesting.
That's kind of what we're diving into today, this whole idea of a church of joy.
Mm.
And trust me, it's not what you might expect.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the source material we've got, it comes from a specific religious context, but the ideas about joy here,
Hmm.
totally universal. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're talking about insights that anyone, regardless of what they believe, their background, they can grab onto these ideas and actually use them.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole Church of Joy concept a bit.
Okay.
It comes from a message, actually, with that same title, and right away, the speaker, he throws out this idea that in his faith, joy isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's not just, oh, I'm happy right now. It's deeper.
It's a core principle.
Yeah, he's saying joy is a core principle.
And what's fascinating there is that he's kind of going against the grain, right? Challenging a very common assumption. Think about it. How often do we link joy to institutions, to
Right.
structured practices?
Right, it's usually a personal thing, right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, I felt joy at the concert, or
Yeah.
baking brings me joy.
Yeah.
But this is different.
It's about systems.
Yeah, this is about, like, baking joy into the systems, the communities, the very ways we do things.
Exactly. And it gets even more, how do I put it? More intriguing when he brings up this idea of, get this, joyful reverence.
Okay, now that, I gotta admit, that one had me scratching my head a little bit at first.
Yeah.
Because reverence to me always seemed kind of serious. Like you're in awe of something,
Yeah.
but it's a bit buttoned up, right? You know what I mean?
Natural connection to make. But the source, it flips that whole script. He describes joyful reverence as this really beautiful blend of, like, deep respect, but also genuine delight. Like, imagine how you would act if you truly believed in something bigger than yourself, something profoundly good and loving. Wouldn't it be with this sense of, like, wonder and awe, not just stiff formality?
It's like that feeling you get when you watch a kid experience something magical for the first time.
Yes.
Their eyes light up, and there's this pure, unadulterated joy, but mixed with this sense of awe. It's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And that's the kind of energy the speaker is encouraging. It's about bringing that same level of presence, that enthusiasm, to everything, not just the things we typically put in the joy category.
So how do we do that? How do we actually live that way? He gives this great example of the difference between attending and worshiping.
Which, I mean, that's relatable even outside of, a religious context. Think about it. How often are we just going through the motions? Attending that work meeting, attending that family gathering, but we're not really there.
Right, we're there physically,
Yeah.
but our mind is a million miles away.
Yeah.
So how do we shift from just attending to truly worshiping, to finding that joy in actively participating in our lives?
And that's where it gets really interesting, because the speaker, he gets surprisingly specific about the small details that can make a huge difference.
Specific how? Like, give me an example.
So he actually talks about stuff like facial expressions during singing.
What?
The tone of voice people use when they're, like, giving talks, just the little things we don't even think about.
So you're telling me I got to force a smile while I'm belting out hymns? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. It's not about forcing anything. It's more about the intention, Are you just, like, going through the motions, or are you really there, present, letting the experience, like, really wash over you?
Okay.
He's saying these small things actually end up contributing to a joyful atmosphere.
Okay.
Which then influences our own experience, and it applies to everything, not just, singing hymns.
Right. It's like when you walk into a room and someone greets you with a genuine smile.
There you go.
It instantly lifts your mood.
Exactly. Or think about the opposite. You walk into, like, a tense meeting, everyone's shoulders are up around their ears, voices are tight, It's the little things that create the whole vibe.
Yeah, totally. And he also talks about this concept of the sacrament, which in his faith, that's a time for reflection and renewal.
Yeah, and I think this is where he gives, like, a really powerful challenge for everyone. He talks about how even if people are coming to this ritual with, like, heavy hearts, anxieties, whatever, worries, he encourages them to use that time to really consciously recognize and appreciate the good, like almost like a practice,
It's like hitting the reset button.
Yes.
On your mental state.
Even if just for a few minutes.
Even just for a little bit, yeah.
And he challenges people to find that sacrament in their own lives.
Yeah.
What is that thing, that practice, that ritual, whatever it is for you, that helps you hit that reset button? Is it that morning cup of coffee? Is it a walk in nature?
A good podcast.
Hey, maybe. Maybe it is. But the point is, it's about finding those things that bring you back to center, that connect you with that sense of peace and yeah, joy, even when everything around you feels chaotic.
And speaking of chaos, I love how real this message gets. He specifically talks about, like, parents with kids and how sometimes that stillness, that perfect joy, it feels impossible.
Right. He's like acknowledging that life is not always, Instagram worthy.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that joy is out of reach.
So how do we find joy when life throws us those curveballs, when those little annoyances or even big challenges, they threaten to kind of steal our joy? What do we do?
And that's where this idea of cultivating joy comes in, right? He says it's not just about finding joy in the situation you're in. It's about choosing joy as like the lens that you're looking through.
It's a perspective shift.
Exactly.
Choosing to focus on the good, even when things are tough.
And he even talks about like families and how families can actually work together to create a more joyful home environment.
Like a family meeting about joy. What would that even look like?
So he talks about having these family councils
Okay.
where everybody shares, what brings you joy, what drains your joy, and how can we actually support each other, in creating this environment where joy is more present.
And that's really interesting, like proactively brainstorming ways to make joy a more intentional part of your family culture.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there, does it?
Yeah.
He also talks about like building a church of joy within our communities.
He's suggesting that joy isn't just this individual pursuit, it's something that we can do collectively.
Correct.
Imagine a community where people are actively looking for ways to bring joy to others, to uplift each other, to support one another.
It's a beautiful thought. But like, how realistic is that? People are so complex. We experience joy in different ways. We express it differently. I mean, come on.
And he acknowledges that. He says, look, joy, it's not a one-size-fits-all experience.
Okay.
Some people, they express joy through, exuberant greetings, right? Others, it's through quiet acts of kindness, like sitting with someone who's lonely.
Right.
There's a million ways to do it.
It's about recognizing that there are all these different flavors of joy. And what matters is that we're each finding ways to connect with that feeling and share it with others in authentic ways.
And that's the beauty of this whole Church of Joy concept. It's not about forcing everyone into a mold. It's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome to experience and express joy in their own unique way.
Yeah, it's about celebrating those differences.
Yes.
And recognizing that we all have something to contribute to this collective tapestry of joy. It's like we're all carrying these little sparks, right?
Yeah.
And we come together, but like intentionally.
Yes.
We can create something really beautiful and powerful.
And that brings us back to this idea of building a church of joy, not as a building, right? But as like a way of life. It's a challenge to really view our lives as these spaces where joy can be like intentionally cultivated.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even begin? I mean,
he talks about starting small.
Okay.
With these little intentional actions. Like, what if instead of rushing through your morning, you actually took a moment to savor that first cup of coffee?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Or instead of just, going through the motions at work, you look for little ways to bring a little joy to your colleagues or your clients, whatever it is you do.
It's about finding those little opportunities to inject joy into those routines, to make the mundane meaningful.
Exactly. And it's not about pretending everything's perfect. He actually says, like, joy can coexist with hardship.
Okay.
Even with sorrow.
Right. And that's important because I think it's easy to think, well, I can't be joyful right now. My life's not perfect.
Right.
I have these problems.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But he's saying that joy, it's not dependent on our circumstances.
It's a choice.
It's a choice we can make in any given moment.
So even when things are hard, we can still find those little glimmers of hope, those moments of grace, those things that bring us joy if we're choosing to focus on them.
He ends with this beautiful quote, actually. He's quoting a figure from the Book of Mormon who's like talking about how his joy is so great. It's like overflowing.
Wow.
And where is it coming from? Not from having this perfect life, but from his faith.
Yeah.
And the hope that gives him.
It's a good reminder. That joy, it's not the absence of challenges. It's the presence of something deeper that sustains us even in the midst of those challenges.
And I think that's a beautiful thought to kind of leave you with today. What if instead of waiting for joy to just kind of happen to us, we started actively creating it in our own lives and in the world around us?
What if we started seeing every interaction, every experience as an opportunity to cultivate joy and share it with other people. I mean, it's a challenge, right?
It is.
But it's a hopeful one.
Absolutely.
Because it tells us that joy is not this, like, impossible thing.
It's not out of reach.
It's something we can build.
Yes.
We can cultivate. We can choose, starting today.
Absolutely.